Welcome to Duwamish Alive, a new program focused on the Green Duwamish River and its watershed. This is Sharon Leishman with Duwamish Alive Coalition and on Rainier Abbott Radio. And we welcome you greatly. So my first question to you all is, do you know Seattle has its own river? Well, most people don't, but this is what this program is all about. The Green Duwamish River is Seattle's only river, as is Tukwila and Kent City's only river. It is actually 93 miles long. It starts up at the area in the Cascades around Mount Rainier and travels all the way to Elliott Bay, which is the bay that is in front of the city, and then goes out to the Salish Sea. So the Green Duwamish watershed, which is, feeds the river, is actually 492 square acres. So it's a pretty huge watershed that we all live in. And, so you can kind of visualize it. If you look, if you're on you're on I-5 and you're crossing the West Seattle Bridge, you can actually, look south and you'll see, Mount Rainier. So vision, that's where the river actually begins. And 93 miles down where you're at, that's where the mouth of the river is. So that's where all the Port of Seattle's big cranes are. It's where Harbor Island is. So this is a very long river that is just an amazing river. So we call it the Green Duwamish River. It's not really the color green, but that's a whole nother story that we'll get into in another show of why it's called that. But we really are focusing now on the Duwamish section of the river, which is the green section of the river. If you're on I-405, that's the section that is goes south from I-405 to close to Mount Rainier. The section north of 405 is what we call the Duwamish section of the river, or the Duwamish River. And that's the area that our coalition is really focused on. People ask me, what is a watershed? And so the technical definition of a watershed is an area of land, and I'm just going to read this, the area of land where all water from rain, hail, snow, and, in our case, it can be sleet, it can be pretty much everything that's falling from the sky. It drains into a common body of water, like a lake, the ocean, or in our case, the river, the Duwamish River. And it's just essentially a large drainage basin. However, that's pretty technical and pretty dry. But what we, as our Duwamish Alive Coalition, how we define it is we understand that a watershed is a huge ecosystem that's made up of wildlife and habitat and most importantly, the communities living within it. So it's pretty much everything that is alive within the watershed. So our Duwamish watershed and our focus is kind of the area, if you look at the Duwamish River and the valley, everything from those ridges from West Seattle all to the east side of South Seattle. That is considered, our watershed. So our which is where how our coalition is focused on. And our Duwamish Alive coalition is a coalition of partners that really do represent an ecosystem. We have a very broad focus. So we have partners that are focused on the waters, on the lands, on the communities within it. So our partners are local nonprofits, community groups, the cities of Seattle and Tukwila, agencies, businesses, and the Duwamish tribe, which we are just very honored to help steward the ancestral lands and waters of the Duwamish peoples. So our mission is to improve the health of the river and its watershed and all living things within it through collaboration and fostering stewardship. It really is an ecosystem focus, which includes the wildlife, the fish, plants, birds, insects, and importantly, you. And even if you don't live within the Duwamish watershed, you live within a watershed, and a watershed is a huge ecosystem that you are a part of. So, for us, it's all connected. We're all part of this, incredible web of life. So for Duwamish Alive, for this river, the Duwamish, I mean, it is an amazing river. It is full of, beavers. They say nature's busy engineers, and those joyful river otters that are incredibly playful. And if you've ever had a chance to watch these little guys, you just cannot help but smile because they are enjoying life. And we see seals and those majestic bald eagles, osprey, the great blue heron. It's amazing. And one of the most important species that's in this watershed is our salmon. So salmon are a really important, we call them a keystone species. Keystone species means that it's a really important species that other species depend on it for their well-being. So our salmon, especially the Chinook salmon, are vitally important, especially to our southern resident orca. So you may have heard a lot of discussion or concern raised about this family of orcas. So they live within the Salish Sea. And if you're in the Seattle area, they're usually the ones that you're seeing swimming, past West Seattle. And the West Seattle blog generally has postings of their progress or their photos, and you'll see them out in Elliott Bay. They actually do travel all the way up into the San Juans, but they are very kind of territorial to this area, and their population numbers are really fragile. So to be able to help support them, we need to help our Chinook salmon that are in the Green Duwamish River. I will say what's unique about this river is that we have all 5 species of salmon in the river, which is I won't say unusual, but it is rather rare that you get all 5 species. So we have the chum, sockeye, coho, pink, and of course Chinook. Now I want to say pink is really interesting because most salmon, everybody knows that they do come back every year and they spawn, except the pink. So the pink only spawn every other year. So you'll hear people say, like, oh, it's a pink year. And no, it's not that everybody at the river is wearing pink. It means that the pink salmon have come back that year. And usually when they're coming back, I mean, oh my gosh, it's the time to be down at the river because the river is just alive with all this wildlife that are drawn to the river with these returning salmon. So it is an incredibly special time. Right now, we have juvenile salmon coming down. Now they all spawn up in the green section of the river. So these little guys that are no larger than your finger are traveling like 93 miles down to get to Elliott Bay and eventually get out into the ocean. So, just think about that. I mean, that's pretty incredible in and of itself. So, what happens is that the Duwamish River, it's a tidal river. So, in the area of around Tukwila, we call that's a special zone where the fresh water really starts mingling with the saltwater tide. And that's the opportunity for these young juveniles who've been born and been living in fresh water start to have biological changes to start to be able to live in the salt water that they're going to spend most of their life in the ocean. So it's a very dynamic situation and pretty amazing when you think about it. So and I will say that there are a lot of places along the river that you can go and you can see the salmon. So generally the juveniles are coming down in the spring, which they're doing now, and then the best months to see the returning salmon are probably late August through the end of the year. Now, each species comes, spawns, and returns at a different time, but the best time probably to see the maximum number of salmon would be like September, mid September to late October. And there's some great places to watch them. So, and we'll talk a lot more about that on another show with other guests because I'm just hosting and our other shows will have some really interesting guests. So, again, this is Sharon Leishman with Duwamish Alive Coalition on Duwamish Alive Rainier Ave Radio, introducing our new Duwamish Alive program. And I just want to let you know a little bit about myself. I came here, with my family at a very, very, very young age. So I grew up here, and I have to say that it was more in my adult years that I really understood that there was actually this was a river. I had always been growing up, and even as a young adult, I had heard that when it was mentioned, it was always mentioned as, oh, it's the Duwamish waterway. And so my impression was, oh, it's just this industrial waterway that all the industries, deposited their industrial waste in, and that usually the comments were always pretty negative as far as pollution and what was going into the waterway. So, and especially then to find out that it was like one of the most toxic, polluted areas in the country, and that it received this like special designation of Superfund site. So, definitely it was not a place that people are going to go flock to and have a picnic next to. the shores of. So our youngest son at one point came to me in school, as part of a school project of wanting to go out to be involved in an Earth Day event, which I thought was great. I was like, okay, let's go. And I said, well, where are we going to go? And he said, oh, there's an event at the Duwamish River that I want to go to. And I'm like, river? Okay. And then I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, all this years and years and years of hearing how polluted and toxic. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to wear a hazmat suit to go do this event. So that was my perception, but I was like, okay, let's go. And so we got to this place called North Winds Weir, and that's in Tukwila. And it's also in an area where you do get this, you get that, the flow of the salt water intermixing with the fresh water. And I was just blown away at the beauty of this river and the beauty of this place. And just the people that we worked with were incredible. All the volunteers that were helping, and what we were doing is creating a restoration area for juvenile salmon habitat. And then especially learning the story behind this place. It used to be this old parking lot with a bunch of, just filled with derelict vehicles oozing their fluid and their liquids into the river, to the point where the whole river surface was just covered with all this, these fluids. And in a collaborative effort between many entities, they purchased the site and had turned it into a really healthy habitat. And what we did that day, we're planting the native plants for that this juvenile salmon. And I have to say, if you go out to North Winds Weir, it is a mature restoration area. It's a mature spot of nature, and it's amazing. And you can still see little salmon, using it. So I have to say that day was kind of a change in life moment for me. And I just fell in love with this river. I've been working at it for well over a decade now. And it is just kind of, it's a love affair. And so I'm so pleased to be able to share this special place with you all, most definitely. So, and I have to say, when I talk about the river and this place, it is a unique place. And it is, to me, in many ways, it's the heart of Seattle. So if you want to understand Seattle today, you really have to look back and look at this Duwamish Valley, at the river, to understand it. Because it was very much, the Duwamish tribe lived there for over 3,000 years. They lived in this whole place of Seattle, and on the east side, they had lodges, for over 3,000 years. And it's a story of immigrants, where you have generations of immigrants bringing their cultures and their histories with them. And that helped formed, the land and the culture that we have today. And I would say that it's also the area that really was and still is the economic engine of Seattle and the region. When you look at the companies and the industries that were based there and are based there, it is that engine that helps move Seattle forward. But with that, there comes another side of that too, of that story. So there has been to have that kind of economic boom. Seattle has been resculptured. The lands have been resculptured. The waters have been replumbed. And yes, that helped develop this urbanized industrial area that we now live in. But there's been a cost to that and an environmental cost to that. And that's something we're going to delve into in other shows as well. But with that part of the story, there's amazing individual stories about it of just like the patience and persistence of making these changes that an individual can make a huge difference. So there's triumphs, but there's also stories of loss and pain, and those we will get into as well. And I look at this wonderful building that we're in, that is built of brick and these old timbers, and it just reminds me that this was all part of the Duwamish spirit and story as well, because the brickwork that many of our old buildings, it came from the Abramson brickworks on the Duwamish, and you can go to Ha'apoose Park and still see part of that building. There's a little bit of the brick wall still left. Ha'apoose Park is named after a Duwamish longhouse village that used to be there. It is the Lushootseed name of that place. And right across the park is the Duwamish Longhouse, which you can visit as well. So, the Duwamish have a really long, steep history here, as do all the newcomers that have helped shape the city as well. So I do hope that you will join us in this journey of discovery of this special place with our special guests, who will be talking about, the environment, the culture, the historical topics of the watershed, because we are definitely all connected, and we all help to shape this place that we live in, both the lands and the waters. And I am looking at how much time. Okay. Sorry about that. So I do have a little bit of extra time. So I do want to mention a couple things. So please get out your calendars or your notepad or what electronic device you have in front of you, and mark the date August 9th, which is our Duwamish River Festival. And this is a great festival. So it's held by the Duwamish River Community Coalition, and it's being held at Duwamish People's Park in South Park. So you can go ahead and get all the details if you just Google Duwamish River Festival. But it is a great festival. There's music, there's tons of booths, good food. It is great. And then they also do kayak. You can go get in a kayak, and if you even if you kayaking on the Duwamish River is a unique and really special experience, because you as a person who's been up and down this river a lot, being in a kayak and seeing it from a different perspective, it's amazing. And so they're going to have kayak tours that you can sign up for at the festival as well. So please, join us at the Duwamish River Festival. And then I want to personally thank both Tony Benton and Danielle Bells for this opportunity to share with you about this amazing river and the life that it supports. This is Sharon Leishman with Duwamish Alive Coalition on Rainier Avenue Radio. And I appreciate you spending your time with me and letting me share part of your day talking about this amazing place that we have. And I do hope to see you all at the river, either on it or beside it. It would be great. Thank you so much.